Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar for today, April 24th, 2016. Today we're going to be speaking about the tool Google Forms in the classroom. By way of introduction, we have 5 of our digital coaches with us today. I think that is the record for any webinar that I've been on to have 6 people presenting. We have Kathy Lee, Lorenda Norman, Dennis Jarrell, Denver Cruz, and Dennis Davenport. I am Mark Oakton, one of the coordinators with IDPL, and I get to work with these digital coaches. Now we want to know who you are, and because today is a Google Form webinar, I had hoped to use a Google Form to find out who you were instead of using, Rachel's getting ahead of the game here, typing it into the text chat box, which is what we usually do. She's been on a few webinars before, it looks like. But because it is a Google Form webinar, I wanted to use a Google Form to have you show us what to do. Not what to do, show you how to do it, and to introduce yourselves. So I've embedded one into the Saba meeting. However, when we tested this, we found that, no, you don't want, there we go. We found that this doesn't work very well. The embedding of a form in Saba meeting is not effective. So we're going to go a different direction and have you use this URL. It is not a live link. You cannot click on it. But if you will maybe make your window smaller, you can type this URL into your browser, and then we can see who you are. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to open up the little survey so I can see who you are. So it'll take about 30 or 40 seconds to do that right now, please. We have people from NVLA, Clark High School, Vegas PBS, Clark High School again, Cashman Middle School, Forbes Elementary, Sunrise Mountain, Spring Valley, IDPL, the Grants Department, Tarkanian Middle School, Rancho, Decker, Central Office, Valley High School, Hurd Elementary School, Richard Bryan, Virgin Valley. We also have people entered in the text chat box. We have NVLA, Tartan, Beckley, Decker, Cimarron, Bonanza, Richard Bryan, Claude Perkins, Johnston, Clark Valley, Treem, Peterson Behavior, Rancho, Vegas PBS, Gibson, Lincoln, Parson, Bonanza, Coronado, Daly. So quite a range of people. Welcome. We're so glad to have you today. Alrighty. Now, the old forms versus the new forms. I don't know if you are aware, but within the last 2 weeks, Google has made it so you can, so the default is the new Google Forms. The new Google Forms have been out for about 3 or 4 months. I've been using them for about 3 or 4 months. But just within the last 2 weeks, they have pushed it to where the new forms is the default. Whereas before, you'd go into the old forms, and it would give you the option, as you see on the screen there. You'd see something that says, try the new Google Forms. You would have to select to do it. Now when you go into it, you will automatically see the new forms. And again, that's just as of within the last 2 weeks that we've seen that. So if you've seen the old forms, don't get confused when you go into forms and say, hey, wait, the look's changed. Google has a tendency to do that. They don't ask permission to change things. They just make changes and roll them out. And usually it's all of a sudden. This time they actually did go for a few months with having people try the new forms before they actually pushed it out for everybody. With that said, if you really, really, really like the old forms, and you don't want to keep using the new forms, I'm going to do a screen an app share here for just a moment, actually. If you see in the bottom left-hand corner, this is, by the way, the forms that you just filled out. Make it a little bit larger. In the bottom left-hand corner, we see this little guy that looks like he's running. He is running back to the old forms. So some of you might have gotten used to the old forms and you want to use it, and you'll be running back just like that little guy there. So it is still an option if that's something that you're used to using. All right. And I've already covered that. With that said, I'm going to turn it over now to Kathy.
Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay? Great. So what I'm going to show you is a little bit about how to get started with forms if you have not ever used it before and you kind of just need a place to start. So I'm going to go ahead and do an app share to share that with you. Okay. So to get started in Google Forms, you have two choices on how to get to Google Forms. The first way that you can do it is if you're already in your Google Drive, and what you want to do is you already know that you want to create a new form, not open one you've previously done. You can use the New button in Google Drive. So you would go to New, More, and then to Google Forms. And when you click on this, it will open up a brand new form for you to start. The second way that you can do it is to go to a tab in your browser and just type in forms.google.com. And when you do that, it will take you to the Forms page. The advantage of going this way is you can still start a new form by clicking on this blank plus sign with the blank behind it. It says blank underneath. But you will also see some forms that they already have made, so example forms, kind of like templates. If I click the More button in the upper right-hand corner, you can see there's more choices. And I can also open previous forms that I might want to modify from this place also. So this is usually where I start, is at forms.google.com because it gives me more choices. I'm going to start today by just opening a blank form or starting a new form. And it will open up. It'll say Untitled Form here at the top and up here in the upper left-hand corner as well. The first thing you'd want to do is give your form a title. So I'm just going to put Practice Form. Okay. And then, because I want to make sure I've also saved this under that name, up in the upper left-hand corner where it says Untitled Form, I'm just going to click, and that will change it to the same name as you've titled your form. But I could also add to that or change that title if I wanted to. Okay. So now I've named my form. This is the title up in the left-hand corner is the title of your file. The title that's in the middle of the form is the title that everyone will see when they see your form. Now I'm ready to add some questions. When I'm doing this in the classroom, I kind of have a system, and I think it works really well. Most teachers I've talked to have this similar system. The first question they want to put on their form is going to be the first name or last name, depending on your choice, of the person taking the form. So if you want to be able to gather information from your students, and you want to be able to notice who those are, who the responses are from, it's a good idea to have the name in there. So I'm going to go, my first question is going to be first name. And you can see when we opened up the form, there was already a first question put in. I'm just changing the question to first name. I want this to be a short answer question because they're going to be typing it in. This little box over on the right side where it says multiple choice gives me all my question types. So I'm going to change that to short answer. And now you'll notice underneath it changed to show us short answer text. Okay. I'm going to add another question. I can do that in two ways. I can add it by using the plus sign over here in the sidebar where it says add question, or because I know my next question is very similar to this one, I'm going to use the duplicate button, which is right down here at the bottom. When I click on that, it duplicates my question. Now I'm going to change that to last name. I'm going to leave it as a short answer. Okay. One thing I want to go back and do, I forgot while I was in there. I want to make sure that every kid does fill in their name. So I'm going to go down to the bottom. I went back to first name question, and I'm going to make it a required question. What that means is that the students are unable to skip that question. If they don't answer it, they are unable to submit their form. Next one down, last name, I also want to be a required question. If I am a middle school or high school teacher and I have numerous periods, or even an elementary school teacher that has several different groups of students, I'm going to want to add a question asking what period they're in. So I'm going to go up here for the plus sign to add a question and add period. And for this one, I don't want the kids typing in the word 1 instead of the number 1, or typing in, misspelling it, because that'll make it very hard for me to look at the information if I decide later that I want to sort things. So I'm going to make this one, instead of a short answer, I'm going to make it a drop down. Okay? And what that will allow me to do then is to put in period 1, period 2, and I am just either clicking between, or I can click tab to go to the next one, or I'm sorry, enter to go to the next one, and it will give me another choice. Let's do that one more time here. There we go. So I'd put in my periods. Let's do 5 periods. Most of you have more than that. Okay. And I'm going to make that a required question as well. Once I've gotten that far, I can continue to add questions. So I'm just going to add a couple more questions and show you a couple more question types. So for example, one might be, my question is going to be, how many lug nuts are on a stand? And I'm going to put in my answers. And I can add another option that says add other. What that does is will make it so the students can type in an answer if they want to. I'm going to make that one required. And I'll add one more. Let's do And for this one, I'm going to do the checkbox one, because what that allows me to do is it allows the students to choose more than one correct answer. So and I can continue to add questions. Let's make that one required. The other type of questions that are available, you can do a paragraph type question, a linear scale like a 1 to 5, or a grid, which lets kind of numerous linear scale ones. I can also have a place where it will automatically put in a date or a time. That's another option for the questions. When I've got all my questions in, let's go back up to the top, I might want to see what my form looks like. At the very top in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little eye that says Preview. When I click on that, it takes me to the actual live form, and I can see exactly what it looks like. To get back, once I'm looking at the live form, if I want to go back and edit my form some more, I just go to this upper right-hand corner where there is a pencil. I click that, and it takes me back to the form. In addition to adding questions to a form, if you look at the sidebar here, we had the add question with the little plus sign. There's some other things I can add in to a form. I can put a title description or header type of that sections out different parts of my form. I can add an image if I want to in my form. I can add a video. And then finally, I can break it up into sections that will be on separate pages if I have a long form. The last thing I might want to do as I'm creating my form is change the way it looks a little bit. Right now, it's just this purple color, and I know some teachers like to pretty their things up a little bit. So next to the eye in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little color palette, little art palette. If you click on that, you have some choices about the different colors you can use. So I could choose a blue instead, and you'll see it reflects the change. And they give you numerous choices of colors. Or I can also, if I go to the bottom right hand of this palette, there's a little picture icon. And that allows me to put an illustration in. I can upload a photo, or I can choose one of the ones they already have in here. And they have numerous different ones. You can see there's lots of different areas. And I'm just going to choose this one right here. Select. It takes a second to change. Now you can see it's appeared up at the top. And if I go back to my preview, I can see what that form will look like for the people I send it to. Okay. Go back into the form. And that's just the very basics of setting up a form in Google Forms. I'm going to now stop my slide share here and or my app share. And Dennis is going to go over, after you've created your form, what then? How do you get it to the people you want it to respond to it?
All right, thank you, Kathy. If you guys can hear me, will you give me a green check real quick? All right, excellent. All right, so I put some slides in here for those people that are watching this later. If they want to use this as a resource, I believe the slideshow is available for you. But I, too, am going to do a screen share and walk you through what's in the slides. So let me share my screen with you here real quick. Can everybody see that? Somebody let me know verbally, please, because I can't see my check marks.
We can see it, Dennis.
Thank you, Lorenda. All right. So actually, I'm going to go back here for just a second. So this is not Kathy's form. This is a different form that I already had some data in that I'm going to use to kind of show you what to do once your form is done and you are ready to send it out into the world. Excuse me. So before you send it out, there are some things that you might want to set up as far as who's going to be able to see it and how they're going to be able to answer it and things like that. So I want to direct your attention up here to this little gear icon in between the eyeball and the send button. And when I click on that, I get this nice little pop-up menu labeled settings. And the first thing I notice is I can change who can respond to this one. They simplified this a little bit from the old version of forms, because now I just basically have two choices, either anyone or anyone in the Clark County School District. And what this does is it restricts people to our domain. So this, if I check this or select this, it means that in order to respond to this form, the person must have an @nv.ccsd.net account. And if they don't, they will not be able to respond. This one, obviously, anybody on the internet can respond to that. I can also uncheck or check this box that will automatically collect respondents' Clark County School District username. Now you notice that if I uncheck that and then I put it on anyone and then go back to this, I really probably need to keep that checked, because that's going to give me their email address automatically when I have them submit. This is also where I can lock it down. So if I'm doing like a quiz or something like that and I only want students to be able to respond once, I can check this, can submit only one response. And that requires a login as well, because that's how it tracks who has responded and who hasn't. You can set the message, custom message, for your confirmation page. That's the page at the very end of the form that you'll see once your answer has been submitted. It defaults to your response has been recorded, but you can set it to something like good job or whatever you want it to be. I can have a link for submitting another response at the end. I can allow people to edit their own responses, and then I can also let them see a summary of other people's responses. So it takes them to kind of a little landing page where it shows some of the data that I'm going to show you. Last two options in this menu are show progress bar, which shows people basically how far they are into the presentation, and then shuffle question order. A lot of people like this feature if you're giving a quiz or something, but I will warn you that if you're using videos and images, the way that it works in forms is you have to stick the image or the video in, and then you have to stick the actual choices for the question in as another question. And if you put shuffle question order on, there is a chance that it's going to completely separate the video and the actual question choices for that video. So just kind of keep that in mind. There is a way around that. You can create separate pages within your form, like Kathy was talking about, that have the video and the questions that go with them on a separate page, and then it will only shuffle within that page. Once I've got all my settings set, I go ahead and click Save, and it will remember those settings. Now, if I'm ready to send my form out into the world, I can click on the Send button. And what's going to happen when I click on that is I am going to get a couple more options here. Again, I have the option to automatically collect the user's district username. I can uncheck that if I don't. It defaults to sending it by email, which you can do, and you can also have it include the actual form embedded in the email, which is kind of cool. But most people share it with a link. Either they put it on their website, or and if you're familiar with Google Classroom, you used to be able to just share the link in Google Classroom. Now you can embed your form right in it. But this is how most people get their forms out to people. Has a convenient shortened URL built into it, so you can get that really long URL chopped down to a more manageable one. And then it has a copy button where you can copy that and paste that into an email or onto a website or whatever. If you're super fancy and you have a website and you want to embed it in your website, you can click on Embed, and it will actually give you the HTML and some options for setting size and things like that. And then you can copy that and paste that into your web. But basically, the main way that you send out a form is you get this URL, you get this link, like Mark did at the beginning, to the people that want to take the form, and then they take it. Okay? Once that's all set out, you might want to add a collaborator to this form, like someone else to work with you on it, and that is a little different. That's in these three dots up here under the More menu. So if you click on here, if you have a partner that you're working on a form together, you're going to look for this Add Collaborators. This is one that I get asked about a lot. And so when you click on here, you get your pretty standard sharing menu. Those of you that are familiar with Google Drive, this will look pretty familiar to you. So if you want to add somebody, like I want to add Kathy to this form as a collaborator where she and I can work on it together, I can put her name in there and then send it. It's kind of neat because I can also restrict Kathy's ability to add new people to the form. But if I want to be able to work with her on it, I can do that and add collaborators. All right, so am I going way too fast? Anybody got any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to say we're good.
Dennis.
Okay, all right. It's just lonely out here. I can't tell if anybody's out there or not. All right, so once you've sent your form out into the wild and you've actually gotten some responses, the way that you can see results has changed a little bit too. So you can actually see results without a Google Sheet, which those of you that have used this a little bit before, you'll know what I'm talking about. But inside the form, you'll notice there's two tabs here. Questions, this is the one that Kathy was working in, and then you have a new tab called Responses, and you'll notice that it says 8 there. That's because when I click on that, you can see that I have gotten 8 responses to my little digestive system quiz. I love this window. This is new in the new forms, and I love it. It shows me a real quick summary of everybody that's responded along with their email addresses. I responded to my own quiz 3 times because I love myself. It also shows you a breakdown of the answers to the questions with the little pie charts and things. You used to have to go to a different link to get a lot of this stuff. It was available in the old forms, but now it's built right in. It shows you answers to the different questions and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little snapshot of your data right there. And then it's got another tab, which is brand new. I believe they just added this last week, which is where you can actually click on individual and you can look at individual people's responses. So it just kind of walks you through. You can use these arrows here to go between the responses, and then it will show you if people put in their name, which the first 3 people that did this did not, it'll just show a generic thing. But if they put their name in or their email address, it'll show that. And then you can print these or you can delete these from here. Okay, so I love that little feature. It's kind of cool. A couple more things about this page. First of all, this is where you can turn your form off. So if you decide, like if you're doing a test or something and you go, okay, no more people taking this test through the form, you just select that, and then you'll get this little message, which is exactly what people will see when they try to take your form once it's been shut off. And it will tell them that it's no longer accepting responses, and then try contacting the owner if you think this is a mistake. You can turn that back on there. Couple more things. We've got the dots here, which is where we can do some different things with our responses, as far as we can set it to email us every time a new person responds to this, which I love that feature. We can select a response destination, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second. If we already have a destination selected, like a Google Sheet, we can unlink it there, which has its uses, and then we can download those responses as a CSV file for uploading into other programs or things like that. And we can also delete all responses in this sheet, which I'm going to show you here in a second. Which, little note there, and Lorenda, if I get this wrong, feel free to chime in, because we were discussing this the other day. Delete all your responses does not actually delete your responses from the sheet, right, Lorenda? It just deletes them from the form?
That's correct. Just the form here.
Excellent. Okay, so just to kind of give you a heads up on that, you won't lose all your answers even if you do click that, because they will be in the sheet. And if you're wondering what the heck is he talking about, this is what I'm talking about right here. So this little icon right here, if I hover over it, it says View Responses in Sheets. And this used to be the default, but now in order to get this sheet, you have to manually click on it. So when I click on that, if I have a sheet that already has answers in it, it's going to pop open that sheet, and then it's going to display the answers to my form. So if I bounce back real quick and I look at these responses, you'll notice that these responses match the responses that are in the form itself, okay? And then this gives you the ability to do some of the things like Dennis and Denver and Lorenda are going to talk about later on, about add-ons and grading and things like that. So this is a super useful way to look at the data, versus has different uses than seeing it in here, which is kind of cool. And then you can manipulate it in all kind of ways and do things like that. Okay, couple more notes real quick about the sheets, and then I will be handing it over to Dennis. First of all, we wanted to show you that if I unlink this form, it gives me this warning that says, okay, it's not going to be hooked to that spreadsheet that I just showed you anymore. And you click on link, and then what will happen is if I click on that spreadsheet again, I'll get this little message. Now, if you haven't gotten any answers to your form and you haven't generated a spreadsheet, if you click on that, this will be the first thing that you ever see. So it gives you two options. You can create a new spreadsheet, and you can give it a title there if you don't like the title that it defaults to. Okay, there's also a Learn More button if you want to know more about that. Or you can select a spreadsheet that already exists. So if you've got a spreadsheet already running that you want to add data to, you can select that one. For most people, they're going to create a new spreadsheet, and then what it'll do is it'll generate that spreadsheet just like I was showing you before. So even though I unlinked it, this is now a brand new spreadsheet that has all of those same answers in it. Hopefully that's not too confusing. And I think, unless I've forgotten something, I think that's it. So do we have any questions about any of that? Or I know that was a lot, but let me stop sharing my screen here real quick.
We had a couple of questions,
okay,
but those are going to be answered by our next couple of people.
Excellent. Okay. So I think I'm going to hand it off to the other Dennis. Is that correct?
Actually, I think I'm up next.
Oh, Denver. I'm sorry, Denver. I apologize. I'm going to hand it over to Denver.
All right. So can everybody hear me okay? Okay. I
Loud and clear. You're good.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now to go over this. So this is a Google form that I've collected, and you'll notice that there are 10 responses here. Why is this thing clicking fun? Okay, 1 second. Okay, can everybody still hear me? I'm hoping.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So, so you'll notice that there are 10 responses here, and a question that was asked in the forum is whether or not the test can be graded, and it can. So I'm going to go ahead and generate a spreadsheet, and here's the spreadsheet. And in order for me to grade this, I'm going to need to add what's called an add-on. So add-ons can be found here in the menu options under add-ons, and I'm going to click get add-ons. Normally add-ons will stay, especially if you're logged into Chrome, and you can see I'm logged into Chrome right here. But for the purposes of this webinar, I removed all of my add-ons so I can show you how to do this. And the add-on that we're going to be looking at today is called Flubaroo. So I'll just type in Flubaroo in the search field. It's free. I like that. It's going to ask me for permissions to know who I am, view my email addresses, manage my documents, all that good stuff. There's information that corresponds to each one of these permissions, and I'm going to allow. And now what's going to happen is it's going to allow me to grade this test automatically. Now, the reason I showed you this form is because in order for Flubaroo to work well, there are some best practices. So you'll notice here, one of my responses, I actually named key. And that's going to play an important part when we're in Flubaroo. So now that I've added that add-on, Flubaroo will show up in the list, and I'm going to say grade the assignment. Since I've already graded this assignment, and you can tell because there's a grades button down here at the bottom with my grades already in it, I'm going to say regrade. If it didn't have that tab, it's going to ask me to grade it originally. So let's delete this tab and grade the assignment. Now, first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask you for the grading option for each one of the questions. So like Kathy was talking about earlier, if you're asking for the student name, I mean, there's obviously no wrong or right answer for that. You're not going to want to grade that. You're going to want to select identify student. If you have the period number that been asked because you have more than one period, or you're in an elementary school that departmentalizes, if you have the period or the class name, you might want to skip grading that. If you have, say, paragraph questions or sentences, and since Flubaroo doesn't do a good job grading those, you're going to want to grade those by hand. So for the most part, if you ask multiple choice questions or questions with exact answers, you would want to select normal grading. And here, it's going to ask you how many points each question is worth. So if you've got some questions that may be worth more than others, you can change the amount here. So once you've set up the grading options and the value, hit continue. And now it's going to ask you for the answer key. So again, what I would do is I would say, even before you give the students the quiz, take the quiz, and when it asks for your name it T or name it answer. I'm going to select that. I'm going to hit continue. And it'll just take a few moments. It'll generate a new sheet inside my workbook. Excuse me. And here it is. So now it's going to tell me which students scored above a 70%, because they're going to be highlighted in black. All of the students that scored below 70 will be highlighted in red. It'll give the total raw score, their percentage, and the number of times they submitted the test. If you asked to collect the nv.ccsd email address, like Dennis was showing earlier, that email address will show up here, and you will have the option of sending the grades directly to the students. That way, whatever grades it is that the students received, it will automatically send them. Are there any questions?
Looks like we're okay so far.
All right. So a few things that you have to keep in mind when using Flubaroo is that Flubaroo works best when you have multiple choice or drop-down. Because in multiple choice or drop-down, what happens is you get exact answers. And the student select their answers and not type it in. So as an example right here, Minnie Mouse thought that the capital of Idaho is Boise, B-O-Y-S-E. You'll notice that Flubaroo marked it wrong because it's spelled incorrectly. Wait a minute, that's weird. This marked this one right and that one wrong. All right, I think it might be because I've graded this so many times over and over that it's not reading the answers correctly anymore. But it should show, oh, whoops, that's why. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one, over here. Where if it's spelled wrong, it's not going to mark it right. And it's also true for things like if you ask the students, what is 4 plus 4, and they write the numerical value of 8 versus writing out the word 8, unless you put both of them in as correct answers, Flubaroo will mark it wrong. So when there are things that could be spelled more than one way or represented in more than one way, then it would be suggested that you use either a multiple choice or a drop down. And you'll notice that this add-on is actually in Sheets and not in Forms. So to talk about add-ons in Forms is Dennis Davenport. Are you ready, Dennis?
Hey, just real quick, Denver, also, I think your names were in red because those students were below 70%. So
Yeah.
it's just identifying across the board who did not do well.
Yeah,
Even though
I
that
know
answer was
yeah.
correct, they were all below 70.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right. My job here is to show you some of the add-ons in Forms. So I'm going to share my screen. And pull up one of the forms that I have kind of pre-created here. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so as you're doing a form, as was said earlier, you have a little puzzle here that has your add-ons. So if you have the add-on already in, you can find that add-on within that list. If you do not have that add-on, over on the left side over there a little bit, and I can't get him on screen here right now, move over. The 3 dots will get you to where you can get your add-ons. On the Get the Add-on screen brings up most of the add-ons that are available. There are a lot of third-party add-ons that aren't on here that you might be able to find outside of Google. But the Google add-ons, the ones that are approved, are here. And I'm going to go over 2 of those. The first of those will be Form Limiter, and then the second will be GMath. So as we go on to, excuse me, click the wrong one, of course. So Form Limiter, you would just look for that form and they show up. Here you can see that I have that form already and I can manage that form. If it's a form that I don't have, it'll come up with the plus and the free. You would click that the same as was shown earlier and then accept the access that it needs to run. So on Form Limiter, the reason that Form Limiter is a good one to use is that Form Limiter allows you to take a form and then if you want to have it turn off at a specific time, it'll turn off at that time. So I'm going to open Form Limiter and it gives me 2 choices. Over on the left here, it will give me the limits and I can select a date and time that I want it to turn off or a number of responses. So if I get, if I want 100 responses and then I want it to shut off at that point because I have enough information, I can choose the number or I can choose the date and time. On choosing the date and time, you just click in the box and it gives you a calendar the date that today's date will show up at a little bit different color. If you wanted it due on Friday before school because you wanted those answers in before Friday, so you would click that you would want it at on the Friday date there that I selected, and then you could pick the time. So say you wanted it at 8 a.m., you would click 8 a.m. Say class starts at 8:05, so you would click the 5, and then set your time, and then save and enable. When that time, 8:05, comes up, the students will no longer be able to add into that form, so they will get this response. And you can change this response to anything that you wish. One of the things that I have done in the past is I told the students that they needed to email me their late answers for partial credit. That way they responded to knowing that they were late as well as the form telling them late. So they're doing that. So you save and enable, and that form is now limited to that where you wanted it to be. Again, if you wanted it to be a number of responses, you just select the number of responses that you wish to have, and it's when it reaches that number, it will then shut the form off. It will also allow you, down here, it will allow you to, it will email you when it's reached that limit. So that's also a good idea for that. Any questions on form limiter? Okay, we'll go on. The second one was GMath. And GMath is specifically for math teachers, I guess, or people who want math equations or some sort of graph within their form to be shown. So on GMath, you have 7 choices that you can do, and we're going to talk about the first 3 here. The first is create a math expression. So it brings up the sidebar, and you have your question that you are going to ask. Remember, the question title is the question that you're going to ask the students. So let's do a very simple one. Add the fractions below. Help text allows them to see what you want, if you need to give them a little bit more direction on where they're going. So we want them to simplify their answers. So you then have the third part, which is to put the LaTeX form in it. LaTeX is a language that changes the language into the math expression. You don't have to know LaTeX language to be able to do this because they've added the LaTeX language within the form so that you can go in and select any kind of math formula that you want. And there are many different types of things that you can put in. If you don't see what you want within the embedded form, embedded code in here, you can go to just Google LaTeX and look up that language or look up that expression that you might wish to do. I'm trying to get back up above here. So let's clear this out, put in a simple one. So we're going to put in a simple fraction. So you find the fraction down below or find the expression that you want to use. You put that expression in, and it automatically puts that expression up in the Enter LaTeX for you, and you just have to change the variables for that. So we're going to make this a little bit more complicated. So we're adding 2 fractions. So you use the plus from the keyboard because the plus is not on the form, and put your second fraction in. You have 2 fractions now, and you can change that. So I want to do 3/4, so I change my variables, and it puts in my 3/4, and I'm going to add 1/2 to that 3/4. So I now have the expression that I can have here of 3/4 plus 1/2, and that's the question that you're going to answer or to ask the students. You would then click Insert. If this is what you want, if this is what it looks like and it's right, then you would click Insert. You can also increase the size at this point. Say if you're using with younger students and you want that to be on the screen a little bit larger, it will increase the size for you. So let's go ahead and insert that, and it will insert it at the bottom of your forms. So on our forms we have it's inserted the image of the expression that you wanted, and it's entered an answer portion for it. At this point, that answer portion is currently a short answer type question. You can change that to any of the different types of questions that you want. All you have to do is then put in the different answers that you wish for that. So this one we're just going to leave that way. If we wanted it to be a multiple choice, you could put it in as a multiple choice and enter those options. So you have all of that. You would then put it as required so that the students have to answer that. You can also, at this point, put a little hint text in, and that will come in down below the question options here so that you can do that. One thing to remember on this, if you do have to move one of these questions, if you're moving a questions within it, you have to move both. They're not linked together as far as move one, they both move. They're both independent, so you have to move both so that the student gets the answer underneath the question itself. Also, within GMath, you have to go in for each different type of question to come back. You can create a graph, and graphs are very simple. Again, it's creating an image for you to put in to ask a question. So you might ask the question, what is the x-intercept? You don't need to put in help text if you wish. And then you put your equation for your line that you want on your graph, and you can clear that out and put in whatever you want. So I'm going to just do a simple 2x plus 4. You then could pick how many spaces that you want, the axis on that, how many numbers you want on the axis. If it's a low number, you can change this down to a lower number. If it's higher, you can change it to a higher. And you can preview that to see what it looks like. So if I want to look at my graph, I can see what it looks like before I actually put it in. So I'm checking to make sure that it's something that I want. It looks proper. And then I can insert that into the graph or into the test. Again, it puts it in down at the bottom, so you want to go down and look at it, and you can see your question is there. You have your answers. Again, you can change that answer to whatever you wish it to be. It could be a short answer or multiple choice. Again, as was said before, if you select short answer, their response must be exact. Off by one letter, capitalized or lowercase, it will be marked wrong if you're using a grading program. If you're grading it on your own, then you're able to do that. So, with graphs also, if you were creating a multiple choice type question, you can also create a multiple choice question where you're typing in the text as far as what you want that multiple choice to be. So you can put in an A, give yourself a couple spaces, and do that multiple choice that way. Put the multiple choice in below. The other thing that's really good is you can also do some statistical displays. But again, if you have any questions, check with your digital learning coach, because they'll be able to help you on using forms.
Okay. What I'm going to go over really quickly is just to show you some different examples of Google Forms. And one thing that I am going to back up really quick, because this was news to me. If you have your Google Form open and your layout does not look like this, it may be shrunken, and so what happens is it looks different, like your text and your asking questions is up here. So if you expand it, you do get to see all of your options. So that's just something to keep in mind. If your form ever looks different than what you're used to, just try expanding it. So some ways to use Google Forms: you can use it for professional development, feedback, signing up for events, PLC meetings, reserving equipment, labs, different things like that. For teachers, you could do a lunch count, parent survey, collecting their contact information. This is really great at open house at the beginning of the year. You could have a book list template, science fair, a teacher report card from the class, let them grade you, see how you're doing. Discipline entry form, and I'm going to show you some examples of a few of these. I'm trying to speed through. Google Forms for students, they could do peer evaluation forms, organizing groups, behavior reflections, observations, spelling test, a really good one, and pre-assessments or just quick grades. So I'm just going to click over and show you some examples. So here's an example of a warm-up. So it's just a math warm-up, and you can see there's the required questions. The kids have to put in their names. And this is that page break they were talking about, and it's just simple, solve the equation. They could have something written on the board, and it's their warm-up for the day. Contact forms. I'm just going to open up a bunch of these so you can see them. Pretty simple here. Name, email, leave your comment. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you're going to collect some information. So this could be about a field trip, about what's going on. It's going to give you the itinerary, their name, their ID, their cell phone number, so you have all of those things with you as you go. Lessons. Should Justin Bieber be deported? So they could have claims and evidence, and here's an article that they could link out to, and then they come back in. They have to put their name in and then answer these questions, providing evidence that support their claim, and submit that. Some informal assessments. So again, you can see all the different colors and just how everything varies. It doesn't always have to be plain. You can be creative. Is there anything you'd like to learn more about in the class? Something you did that makes you proud of yourself? There's the Likert scale. A lot of different things you can do there. I know I'm flying through these pretty quickly. Harry Potter quiz. So what is your name? And it's interesting on this one, it doesn't have that red asterisk. So as a student, I mean, I could actually skip that and go through. So there's just a checkbox. And then they would submit. It's got a very cool graph inside of there for them, though. Makes it interesting. And they customize the header. This is where Kathy Lee was talking about. You could change the color or you could upload a photo. Choose your own adventure. This one's really cool. And this is where the page break comes in handy. So this is just they begin their adventure, and students can create these. They're really awesome. So it's a scary mansion. It gives them an option. So this is the house. What happens next? You walked up to the porch and peeked through the window and continue. Based on how they answered is where it takes them. And if you just Google choose your own adventure and forms, they'll have step-by-steps for you if you're interested in that. And they decide what they're going to do next and continue on. Polls and surveys. So this could be elective t-shirt contest, or a lot of middle schools when they're doing the different contests they have, instead of them interrupting the classes, it may just be easier to go into the lab and everybody chooses who they want. You could use it for bell ringer and exit tickets. So first name, last name. This is just an image that's put inside of there. So it's just 4 or 5 questions, and they would submit. In 3 words. We use this one. It was just they put 3 words in, how they feel about it. We took that information from the sheet, put it into a Wordle, and had a nice graphic about what was going on and people's thoughts about their training. Could use a discipline entry form. This is the older form version looking, but you could, if you build something like this, it would have a drop down with your name. You put the date in, the student's name, and then what was the problem. And this, remember, would all go into a sheet, so you're documenting it and you're following the disciplinary procedures before you send them to the dean or whatever you're going to do there. Quick and easy. You could have a tutoring login. So they just come in the morning or whatever it is, they just sign in. I've seen it used for book checkouts. I mean, the bottom, if you can think of it, you can probably make a form for it. For anything, and it's nice, and it's not daunting or intimidating when people see it's pleasant and easy to go through.
Thank you very much, Lorenda. We appreciate that. Thank you for being here with us today. We're going to wrap it up now. We know it's 4:30 and our hour is up. If you have questions, please let us know. Talk to your digital coach at your school or send one of us an email. We can definitely support you with your use of forms. Before you go, again, when you go, make sure you click the red X at the top right-hand corner to exit. I'm going to put a survey out real fast before you go. For those in the playback, please click on the log attendance and exit in the bottom right-hand corner. If you wouldn't mind taking this exit survey for us really fast before you leave, we would. That's not it. There it is. We would appreciate your input on the exit survey, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Again, thank you so much. Good job, everybody.
Thank you.